Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, and not, as you can see, in the usual cellar, but instead sitting at the heart of the manor house at Nederburg, which might just be my new favourite place in the entire world. It's a glorious old house. The design and style, it just drips with history and authenticity. It's a fabulous place, gazing out to the views across Pyle, to sit down and work your way through some wine. And that's what I'm going to do in just a moment. But before I do that, I've got to give you some pretty good news that's tinged with just a little bit of sadness. The sadness is that I cannot be part of the competition I'm about to tell you about. And when you hear just how cool this competition is, you'll realise why I'm very bleak that I'm not allowed to enter. The competition is as thus. One of you could win a trip for 4 people down to the Cape to have what I think will be the coolest wine weekend in history. It works very simply. You'll jump on a plane, provided you're not from the Cape, fly in and come through to Stellenbosch. The Koopmanshuis Boutique Hotel and Spa is where you'll be for the weekend. Drop off your luggage and then straight off here to Nederburg, where you'll get to come through, you'll do a tasting, you'll meet the winemaking team, you'll get a feel for just why this is such a cool part of the winemaking world. You'll get to eat, you'll get to drink, you'll get to have just a really, really special time here. And then, and this is almost as cool as drinking some of the best wine you'll come across, you'll jump into a sidecar and head back to Stellenbosch. How awesome is that? I've never been in a sidecar. I'd love to. You're going to have the opportunity to do just that if you win the competition. Your day's not done though, because once you've had your brunch, once you've had all your wine, met the winemakers, and got your trip back in the sidecar, it's dinner in Stellenbosch at the Fat Butcher for as good a steak as you will come across. Best steakhouse in Stellenbosch. I've been there with Michael Jordan, my fellow director at Dan Really Likes Wine, on numerous occasions. It's just a terrific spot. Now that in itself would be a terrific prize, but there's way more, and that's the reason I have these 3 particular wines with me. The next day, it's into Cape Town. Now you're going to need to be a little courageous, because you'll be going tandem paragliding, taking off Signal Hill and coasting down to land on the promenade, jumping on a bike, cycling along the promenade and heading past the lighthouse before going out on an afternoon cruise armed with plenty of bubbles. Now, if you know the Durbanville Hills range, you know they've reworked some of it. Last year, they came out with a great series of artwork celebrating different icons around the Cape. The promenade, the lighthouse, the Cape Mist are all part of that iconic series, and you'll be touching on all of those as you make your way through a splendid day in Cape Town, culminating in that afternoon cruise. You've got the evening at leisure, probably to upload 8,000 photos to Facebook and to show everybody you know is hugely jealous. But we are still not done, because on Sunday it is a trip out to Alto. You'll get to meet the winemaking team there, and you'll get to drink not just the current Altos, but also some older ones as you do a vertical tasting, which doesn't mean you stand on Derek Watts' shoulders while you drink the wine. It means that you taste wine from a series of years and see how those different vintages compare and how the older wine has fared as it's spent a few more years in bottle. So that is your experience. You'll then be flown home to tell everybody about this extraordinary trip, and it's one that you can win with a really, really simple process. Become a member of the Pick n Pay Wine Club. That's it. You just become a member of the Pick n Pay Wine Club, and if you're not, simply send a message to the number on screen, text that number through with your Pick n Pay Smart Shopper number, and bang, you're in the competition. And Nederburg, Alto and Durbanville Hills will all await. Of course, amongst all of that is some incredible wine, so let's have a crack at some of it. And I'm going to start with the Durbanville Hills Sauvignon Blanc, which was one of the earlier wines I encountered when I was in South Africa, and it's very much an iconic South African wine, an iconic South African Sauvignon Blanc. You'll find this on wine lists all over South Africa. It's a go-to wine for many people who like their Sauvignon Blanc, and particularly like the Sauvignon Blanc that comes out of Durbanville Hills. You've got great estates in Durbanville Hills making Sauvignon Blanc, guys like Natita who do so well with it. Durbanville Hills very much amongst them. Terrific views over the sea, and it's that very ocean that contributes so much to the nature of this particular wine. As you can see, it's got a couple of awards there. The Michelangelo judges were very happy with it, and whenever I've had it, I've been happy as well, particularly on a day like today. I often advocate against drinking your wine too cold, but outside it's closing on 40 degrees here in Pyle, so an extra degree or 2 off my usually preferred temperature is for today no bad thing. And in fact, I think this is actually a perfect temperature, because it is cool, but it's not that cold that it's frozen out the added delights of the wine. First thing I look for in a Sauvignon Blanc, how acidic is it? Is it stripping my tongue? No, this is not that kind of paint-thinning Sauvignon Blanc that you can get when it's not made terribly well. It's got a nice balance. The acidity is there, and you do want some, particularly when you're eating. The acidity goes really well cutting through food, but it's not overbearing. It's not scrunch your eyes up as you drink it. Joburg foodie, Steve, if you're watching this, I think even you could drink this, and you hate Sauvignon Blanc. So it's a completely smooth, gentle, just a really enjoyable glass of Sauvignon Blanc for a hot summer's day, particularly, may I suggest, after you've just been paragliding off Signal Hill and are now sitting on a yacht looking across a Table Mountain, and as Jason Goliath would say, living your best life. Well, I needed that because I'm pretty hot from walking around Nederburg this morning and taking in the sights of this brand new manor house and all the other developments happening here. So that has cooled me down and sets me up rather nicely for some red wine. And the first of those red wines comes from Alto. Now, you've almost certainly tried the Alto Rouge. It is a particularly well-known and celebrated South African red blend. I think there have only been 5 winemakers ever at Alto. They all live to be about 300 and work forever. But that means there's so much experience and heritage to the Alto estate. So Berto, the winemaker, is an affable giant of a man, played top-class rugby, but now has superseded that rugby career by following on the family tradition of his father of making terrific wine out at Alto. It's this Cabernet Sauvignon that I'm showcasing today, though, and not the Alto Rouge. It's a little more expensive. Your opening wine there, you're probably looking 70, 75 rand thereabouts for that Sauvignon Blanc. This Alto is closer to 260, 270 rand. So why are you investing that sort of money in a bottle of wine? Well, first of all, where it's from, the Alto region and Stellenbosch, prime terroir for making Cabernet Sauvignon. It's just in a greater area where Cabernet Sauvignon absolutely thrives. And when it's in the hands of an experienced winemaker like Berto, it thrives even more. It's always a rich, luscious, juicy wine. I'm going to confirm that as I pour it. But the history of red wine in that area is what has made the Alto Rouge so well known and celebrated. And this Cabernet Sauvignon follows on from that particular tradition. Now, it can sometimes be difficult to drink red wine on a day like this when it is so swelteringly hot and windless outside, but I still can't say no to a glass of this. And although it's a big wine, I don't feel that it's heavy. It doesn't sit heavily on the palate. There's somehow still a lightness of touch that comes to it. It's just made with an elegance that doesn't feel like your palate's drowning under the weight of wine, which can sometimes happen with a particularly big Bordeaux blend or a heavier red like a Cab. So it's still got that structure, it's still got a big pair of shoulders on it, much like Berto himself. But it's just a beautifully composed Cabernet Sauvignon. And what I would like about this, what the team at Nederburg have very kindly done for me, is they've popped it in the fridge for about half an hour. So it's certainly not cold, but it's just taken the sting out of the heat. And if it was still warm, then I think I would get that heaviness, that clamminess that really doesn't go down well. Instead, this is not a light summery red, but certainly one that you can drink quite happily, although you might have a glass or two of chilled Sauvignon Blanc just beforehand to cool the palate down. And so what I really love about this prize is you're getting out to Alto to meet Berto. He knows this estate so well. It's got such rich history and heritage. It's a chance to really get stuck in to what for me is an estate that represents the very best of Stellenbosch, the very heart of South African winemaking, and just some really, really, really good wine. And if you are the prize winner, let me know what you think of the different verticals in that selection. I think it's going to be a particularly special experience. All right, so we've done the Durbanville Hills, we've done the Alto, that's your day of Cape Town adventure, your day with the winemaker. The first day of the prize is here at Nederburg, so tasting some Nederburg wine is the obvious thing to do. This is the Wine Masters series. You've doubtless seen them on your local shelf at Pick n Pay. I think this is a really solid price for the quality of the wine you get in this range. This is under 100 rand a bottle. This is the Shiraz, and Samuel, who makes the red wine, you might have seen me chatting to him at the Harvest Festival here at Nederburg on the show a few weeks ago. he's got a really simple and uncomplicated approach to talking about wine. I think that extends into the way he makes his wine. You can see he just really enjoys what he's doing, and I think if you love wine, making wine is the natural extension of doing something you absolutely love. This is still reasonably young. It's just a couple of years old now. It's definitely got a few more years in it, but it's made softly enough that right now it's more than drinkable. The worry with a newish red is how sharp are those tannins going to be? Is it going to give you that little wince as you drink it? And that's definitely not the case. As with the Alto we've just drunk, again, the temperature has been dropped, just a few degrees taken off it, not so that it's ice cold, because that would be horrible, but just to a point where, especially again on a really hot summer's day, it's drinking comfortably and allowing you to not be overpowered by a really hot wine, but certainly not cold enough that you lose out on the subtleties and intricacies of this particular wine. There's quite a nice light perfume to it. It's, again, very delicate. You often talk about Shiraz having that spice to it, and it's there, but it's very understated, certainly not overpowering. You often think of that Shiraz description as the Syrah being the slightly lighter version, the slightly gentler, more delicate, and for me that's got more of that Syrah feel than the Shiraz feel, in as much as there is that difference. It's a game of semantics, as so much of wine description is. But yeah, just a really relaxed, easily balanced red wine that does great justice to both the winemaker and to this fabulous view. I think I could move here, actually. Yeah, if Mrs. Nicol, if you're watching this at the moment, I'm not answering my phone and you can't find me, this is probably where I will be. Okay, so 3 wines down, and let's wrap up with the last of them. And this wine has got a personal story to it. So Dan Really Likes Wine is one of my television adventures. The other is the Dan Nicol Show, which is about to start its 11th season. And at the end of each episode, the Dan Nicol Show has a partnership with Nederburg. We give our guests a bottle of wine. Last year on the Dan Nicol Show, we had a terrific food-themed episode. All 3 of the Australian MasterChef judges were out. They were at Appetite Festival at Times Square with Sun International. So we filmed the special edition of the show at Times Square. And afterwards, I gave each of the guys a bottle of this. It is the Nederburg 2 Centuries. Now, before I tell you what the price of this is, let me tell you the feedback that I got from Gary Megan. Now, Gary's the real wine guy amongst the 3. He's a classically trained chef. He's the one the other 2 really do look up to in terms of his skill in the kitchen, but also his appreciation of fine wine. I was hosting the event, and we had a drink on a Sunday evening after it was all done. We were happy but exhausted, and Gary said to me, "Mate, that wine you gave me, that's one of the best bottles I've had this year." And it was a bottle of the Nederburg 2 Centuries. Now, he didn't really know the brand, comes from Australia. They don't have internet or television over there, so they wouldn't really know these things. But he discovered via the Dan Nicol Show the Nederburg 2 Centuries, and he absolutely loved it. I'm not surprised at all, because of all the Nederburg wine, I think this is probably my favourite. I do have a leaning towards a really good Cabernet Sauvignon, and this is very much an example thereof. Now, it's not a cheap bottle of wine. You're probably looking at 400 Rand or thereabouts for this bottle, so it's an investment piece, I suppose, for that special occasion, that wedding anniversary, that big night out, and so you'd want to keep it for that very occasion. But once you do open it, as I have now, you're unlikely to be disappointed. So if you win the prize and you get down here and you're chatting to Lizelle and to Samuel and to the winemaking team, make sure they do give you a taste of this. Because if you like your red wine, and if you like them big, and you like them muscular, and the kind of wine that's just crying out for a large slab of steak, then Gary Megan and Dan Nicol both approve of this particular one. Oh. So this has had some time in bottle. As you can see, it's a 2013 that we're drinking here, so it is a bit older, and it's just so smooth. There's a seamless feel to the wine, everything integrated perfectly. You can almost pick up that tiniest little wisp of cigar smoke coming off a dark berry basis. it's always difficult to find new ways to describe wine, but there's a reason why the great wines have such a similar lexicon about them, because they do play off such similar notes. And this has all those classic notes of a great Cabernet Sauvignon. Oh, that is absolutely delicious. But you won't have to take my word for it. You'll be able to try yourself, either by buying the wines yourself, and these are four I'd recommend you have a crack at, or simply by joining the Pick n Pay Wine Club and becoming a member and going into the draw, and that 130,000 Rand prize could be yours, heading here to Nederburg, the sidecar trip, the restaurant, the Fat Butcher, going tandem paragliding out on a yacht in Table Bay, finishing off on Sunday at Alto before heading home. It is an absolutely fantastic prize. Good luck to all of you. There'll be a very worthy winner, I have no doubt. Very sadly, I can't enter, but I know that whoever does and does win will be an extremely lucky person. The mechanics are so simple. You don't have to fill in a form. You don't have to do anything other than being a member of the Pick n Pay Wine Club. So good luck to you all. Thanks Nederburg for hosting us today, and I can't wait to hear about the wine adventure that our lucky winner will have.